Welcome back, my card making friends. Do you find it difficult to mix and match your stamp sets so that they look like they actually coordinate? The pair of projects I'm creating in this video will help you find some great sets you can use together, along with a great color combination and sketch. Welcome to Sketch Starters with Nicole. I will be using 4 stamp sets: Build-A-Flower Larkspur, Build-A-Flower Fuchsia, Layered Cupcake, and Versatile Vases. All 4 of these sets work seamlessly because they share a few common attributes. First, they all have a similar outline style. See how they all have a thin, even line with not much extra detail? That makes them all look very similar in style. When you're looking to combine stamp sets, that's something you should definitely consider. A layering stamp with a different style outline or no outline at all would not look like it coordinates as well. Secondly, as I get started with stamping here, these 3 sets are all layering stamp sets. I'm going to do all of the outline layers in Obsidian Black. That will help make them look more coordinated. As I plan on doing stamped layers instead of only using the outline for these projects, I'll be using the same set of inks throughout. This is a color combo I've been using all month: Ruby Red, Coral Bliss, Sun-Kissed, and Lagoon. Be sure to check out the link above to see more projects with this combo. I started the first layer of the Larkspur with Sun-Kissed and did the leaf image in Lagoon. The leaf color might seem like an unusual choice, but as you watch, you'll see how I add extra depth with an interesting technique. The second layer on the flower is Coral Bliss, and the second layer on the leaves is Sun-Kissed. Both of these colors are going to melt into the first layer to create a new color. The flower was going to take on an orangey look, and the leaves will turn more green. Moving into the next layer for the flower, I'm using Ruby Red, which will add a nice depth to the petals. On the leaves, I'm using the same detail layer to stamp Lagoon over the Sun-Kissed. This is going to make the Lagoon look darker. It's going to give those leaves some final depth and really make it look a bit more botanical. So there's going to be this darker shade of green around the edges. See how that looks? It is just really, really a nice look. There are a few more layers to go on the flower image. This is the final detail layer on the outside of the Larkspur. I'm using Lagoon for this one as it's a contrasting color to Ruby Red. That means that it falls on the opposite side of the color wheel and will mute that Ruby Red that it covers, creating some gorgeous shadows. Since I wanted to limit myself to the 4 colors in my monthly color combo, I decided to add Sun-Kissed to the center image and then finish it up with Obsidian Black for the stamen detail layer. These flowers are now complete and can be die cut. Since I'm mixing and matching, I need to keep on stamping images. I'm moving on to the Build-A-Flower Fuchsia here, and I'm doing the outlines again in Obsidian Black. I will then progress through the various layers using similar combos like I did with the Larkspur images. To get some contrast between the 2 parts of the fuchsia, I'll start with darker colors, first stamping in Coral Bliss. This next layer here is in Ruby Red. And then I'm going to finish again with Lagoon to get those nice dark details. All the while, I did the same Lagoon, Sun-Kissed Lagoon process on the leaves. For the lighter inside of the fuchsia, I will focus on Sun-Kissed and Coral Bliss to create a lighter area. So this first layer here was the Sun-Kissed, and then I'll move into Coral Bliss. I'm going to end with the stamen and Sun-Kissed, and now these are ready to be die cut. For the last images, I'm moving away from florals and popping in a cupcake from the Layered Cupcake stamp set. Once again, the outline is in Obsidian Black. I wanted to create a nice teal cupcake wrapper, so for the first layer, I'm using Lagoon, but I'll stamp it off on a Post-it first so I can get a lighter shade of the hue. Then for this detail layer here, I'm using full strength Lagoon. So I'm going to get a nice darker detail area without any effort. Moving on to the cake layer, we're going with a classic yellow cake, and Sun-Kissed is just the perfect color to create that yellow cake look. To complete the frosting, I'll employ that same 2nd generation stamping technique with Coral Bliss on that background stamp, stamping it off first on a Post-it and then going ahead and putting that on the stamped image. The next layer in full strength Coral Bliss is going to add just a hint of depth coral on coral. It looks really nice. Then the final frosting layer is going to be in ruby red. That's really not a surprise at this point, but it's going to look fantastic together and really give those ridges some nice depth. Now, again, I'm ready to die cut this piece and move on to next steps. Moving on to finishing the card and assembling the look. This is where we will dive into that sketch. I created all of these elements so far with this sketch in mind, knowing that I would need a larger focal point image for the large circle and some smaller images for those supporting circles. I'm starting off here by adding some detail to the background using the stripe builder stencil and sun-kissed ink. I find that this stencil works best with temporary adhesive on the back, so with it stuck down on my card base, I can add my blended color. I don't want anything dramatic, just a subtle pattern to keep the background from being too plain. For this first design, I'm going to use a vase from Versatile Vases. This is going to create the large rectangle shape in the sketch. I'm stamping this right on the card base using Obsidian Black. Again, keeping that outline image so that I can be consistent across all of the stamped images in this project. I'll use the mask stencil to block off the surrounding area and add just the lightest touch of lagoon to the vase so it looks like there's water inside. The vase will look like it's glass because you can still see those background stripes peeking through, but now there's just going to be this slightly different color as if you're seeing through the glass and some water in the vase. To finish off the design, I pre-placed all of my stamped imagery on the card to make sure I liked the look. I also placed the sentiment from the Build-A-Flower Larkspur to make sure it would fit. Since I had it in just the right place, I carefully moved my sentiment and card base over to my MISTI and stamped the word in Obsidian Black. With that complete, I can rearrange the florals to mimic the sketch and glue them in place. I started by arranging the larkspur and the leaf. These elements signify the large circle and the first smaller circle next to it. I want to add some layering here, so after the larkspur element is glued together, I placed the fuchsia so I could eyeball exactly where it was going to end up, and then I just glued it down directly to the card base. The fuchsia is going to get popped up here with some adhesive foam squares. To finish off the circular elements, I added in the small fuchsia and leaf to the bottom of the vase, gluing them directly to the card base. I put them at a slightly jaunty angle so it kind of looks like the fuchsia has fallen out of the vase. I had one more element to add in, which was the smaller horizontal rectangle. I chose to use the remainder of the sentiment to finish off the design. It's popped up with some more foam strips and really finishes off this card. Are you enjoying this project? Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and click the bell for notifications. I was really excited to move on to the second take on the sketch. When I created these sketches, I remember mentioning that I wanted to do something that mimicked a cake plate. So now is my chance. After considering a few options, I realized in looking at the sentiments from the layered cupcake that I could combine the happy birthday sentiment with the life is better with cupcakes sentiment to create a cake stand. I have those sentiments all lined up here and a panel in my MISTI with those same stripes from the stripe builder stencil. So once I had that stamped, I added a fun foam panel to the back of that layer and adhered it to the card base. I like to use foam panels like this, especially when I'm working with a large piece. This helps keep the layer from sagging in any area and is a lot easier to apply than a whole bunch of those individual foam squares or strips. Now to layer the stamped elements to mimic the sketch. The sentiment covers the two rectangular elements, so I'm down to the circles. This large circle is created by the cupcake, so I place that down first. We're starting to get some elements on top of our cake plate. I had a fuchsia that I had stamped off on a smaller piece, and it had this cut off edge to it, and that got me thinking. So this worked out pretty well as I could place it so it looked like it was kind of sitting on a plate where you could only see a part of the flower. I added in some leaves behind to finish off the rest of those circular elements. So don't be concerned about 3 elements needing to be 3 discrete circular looking items. By combining the leaves into the fuchsia, I think that really covers the concept of those circular elements. I have a fuchsia bud and a little leaf at the bottom that I'm going to add as the last circular element. Very similar to what I did on the first one where it looked like it was falling off of the vase. This one looks like this little bud has perhaps fallen off of the cake stand, or perhaps it was placed there on purpose just to give a little bit more fun detailing. I decided that I needed to add in a last simple but pivotal element. I used my T-square and a fine liner pen to add in some lines between the two parts of the sentiment. I think this helps to create a more defined look for the cake plate. What do you think? And with that, I have 2 completed cards that used a variety of stamps to create a cohesive look. Remember the tips that I shared. Look for sets that have similar properties, such as outline images in the same thickness and style, and layering stamps where you can use a cohesive color palette to unite the images further. Now that you've seen these tips in action, I'd love to know what Altenew stamp sets you think would pair nicely. Share your ideas in a comment below. Don't forget to tag at Altenew LLC and me at Pixel Maven's Retreat when you use the sketch for your projects. I just love to see all the different interpretations you come up with. I'll be back soon with more inspiration and more sketches, but until next time, happy crafting.
Hello crafters, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you want to see more, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything. Thanks for watching!